Hi everybody! We are going to make berry muffins. This recipe is courtesy of Morning Glory. They're a cafe in Ashland that we hope you will get a chance to visit once they reopen. But in the meantime, together we will make these muffins that you can enjoy with your family. So, hope you have downloaded the recipe. The recipe is available on our website, logoscharter.com, and you can print it from there, or you can follow along if you are viewing it on your phone or device. First things first, make sure you wash your hands, and it's always important that you have a grown-up nearby when you are cooking. So this is a great time to wash your hands, go find a grown-up and have them help you preheat your oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. So the first step is to take our softened butter, which I softened just by leaving out on the counter for a couple of hours before I started making this recipe. And the recipe calls for 1.5 sticks of softened butter. So I'm going to use the little guidelines here that tells me how many tablespoons. So there are 8 tablespoons total in 1 stick of butter. So I'm going to cut it in half and get 4 tablespoons to get 1.5 sticks of butter. And I'm going to drop half a stick and 1 stick in my mixer, and I have the paddle attachment here that you can see. All right, and I will just save this little guy for later. All right, and you can hear my oven is preheated. So the recipe says to preheat your oven to 350 degrees. So if you haven't done that yet, now is a good time to do that. All right, and the next ingredient to add is 1 cup of sugar. So I've got my 1 cup measuring cup here, and I've got my sugar. All right, so I'm gonna just scoop my 1 cup measuring cup into my bag of sugar. Actually, I might set it on my little cutting board and pour some of it. I spilled a little bit, but that's okay. These things happen when you're in the kitchen. It's important to clean up after yourself if you spill. All right, and I'm gonna take the back of a butter knife and just kind of level out the top of my sugar back into my bag, so I make sure that I am only getting 1 cup like the recipe calls for. And I spilled some more, but that's okay. All right, so I've got my butter in my mixer, and I'm gonna pour my 1 cup into the mixer. And now the recipe says to beat the butter and sugar until it is soft and creamy. So I'm going to do that. And then it says to add the eggs 1 at a time. So I'm going to wait till my butter is looking soft and creamy with my sugar, and then I will add the eggs 1 at a time. So I'll just leave that there, medium high, so my butter gets nice and soft. All right, so my butter is looking nice and creamed with the sugar. So I am going to move my mixer to low and keep it mixing while I crack my eggs. So to crack an egg, you are going to gently tap the egg on the side of the bowl, and then it'll get a little crack just on the side, and then you use your thumbs to break those 2 halves apart. And then I'm just going to put my shells like that back in my carton. So there's 1, and the recipe calls for 5 eggs, so I'm just going to do that 5 more times. There's 2. There's 3. There's 4. And it's okay if you get a little bit of shell in there. Just make sure you turn off your mixer, and then when the blade has stopped turning, you can have a grown-up help you reach in and grab any eggshell that might have dropped in with a spoon. And on my 5th one, I'm gonna try and get fancy here, showing off a little bit. I'm gonna try and crack this egg with one hand. Look at that, success. Now my hands are a little bit eggy, so I'm gonna go wash them again and just leave this kind of mixing on low really quick and now I'm going to use my spatula and scrape the egg and the butter and the sugar down off the sides. I'm gonna blend it some more so everything gets mixed together really well. Now, while that's mixing, the next step is to add 1 tablespoon of vanilla. So I've got my tablespoon measuring spoon and my vanilla extract, and I'm going to go ahead and add that. This is looking good. So I'm measuring in 1 tablespoon, and I spilled a little bit again, but that's okay. Sometimes we spill things when we're baking. All right, and just get it nice and combined there. All right, now my wet ingredients are ready to go. I'm going to close up my vanilla. All right, next I'm supposed to combine the flour and the baking soda, and it says the baking soda should be sifted. So I've got my handy dandy sifter here, and so I'm going to get a separate bowl here to sift my flour and baking soda. So I have 1 3/4 cups of flour that is going into my muffins. So I'm just gonna dust the sugar out of this measuring cup that I was using for the sugar. And now we're gonna get 3 cups of flour into our bowl. And just like I did with a butter knife before, I'm just using this little flour scoop to kind of make the top of my cup of flour very level. So there's 1, 2, 3. That time I dug a little bit of the flour out, so I'm going to add a little bit more and try and flatten it really smooth again. All right, and there's 3. Now I need 3/4 cups. Now I happen to have a 3/4 cup measuring cup, but if you don't, you can get a 1/4 cup measuring cup that most people probably have at home and just do 3 of those. Because 1/4 plus 1/4 plus 1/4 equals 3/4. All right, now my flour is done. So I'm gonna put the lid back on my flour. We might need that again later for our blueberries. Okay, and then the baking soda. I need 1½ teaspoons. So I have a 1/2 teaspoon measuring spoon. So I need 3 1/2 teaspoons to equal 1½ teaspoons of baking soda. So there are lots of different kind of sifters that you can use. So just use whatever you have at home to sift your baking soda. So there's 1. And mine has this handy little edge here that I can just set on the edge of my bowl while I measure. There's 2. And there's 3. All right, now that I've got my baking soda all measured out, I'm going to make sure it all gets sifted out in there. And then I'm just going to take a spoon really quick and stir this. I'm gonna just take my spoon and incorporate the baking soda with the flour before I get ready to add it into my my wet ingredients. Before I add it into my wet ingredients. All right, so I'm stirring my flour. Now, At the top of the recipe, you probably read that this recipe can be altered in different ways. The recipe suggests that you can make variations and add different flavors. So today I have a lemon, and I am going to zest my lemon into my dry ingredients, and it'll take just about a couple teaspoons, maybe a tablespoon of zest from one lemon, and I'm gonna zest that into my flour and mix it up before I add it in with my wet ingredients. So my muffins are going to be lemon blueberry muffins because I'm adding lemon zest, but you can make just traditional blueberry muffins, or you can look at the recipe and use whatever you have on hand to make it a little bit different. I need to wash my lemon first before I put the zest in. So I'm just gonna rinse it off with some cool water and pat it dry really quick. All right, so I've got my lemon. It's been cleaned off, and I am going to zest it into the flour. Now, this tool that I use to zest the lemon is called a microplane, and it's kind of like a cheese grater, but the blades on it, I guess, are a little bit smaller than a cheese grater. So one thing you want to make sure when you zest your lemon, that you're not zesting back and forth and shaving back and forth, because once you get down to the white stuff, that's the fiber part of the lemon, the fibrous part of the lemon, and it doesn't have the same lemon flavor, and it's a little bit bitter tasting, so you don't necessarily want that in your muffins. But it's okay because you probably won't notice too much. But just get the lemon shavings just from the outside layer. Lemon, and now I'm going to be done with this. So I'm going to set it back down, and now that you've got a zested lemon, you could do whatever you want with this. Maybe squeeze a little bit into a glass of water and have lemon water, or maybe even make a small cup of lemonade with one lemon. So now that I have my lemon zest in my dry ingredients, I'm going to stir it one more time just to get the lemon zest incorporated. All right, now my recipe says to combine the flour and, oh wait, I already did that. Now my recipe says to add alternately with the buttermilk, stopping the machine and scraping down the sides until all is incorporated. So I'm gonna alternate adding my flour and my buttermilk to the mixer. So I need 2 cups of buttermilk total, so I'm gonna kind of shake it up. Since I'm not at home, I don't have a glass measuring cup for liquids, so I'm going to use my 1 cup measuring cup that I used before, and I'm going to measure 2 cups of buttermilk into this mug so I can easily pour it into the mixer when it comes time. But you can use a glass measuring cup if you have one at home. Okay, so I should have known, I should have done my math. That this container of buttermilk is 1 pint, and 1 pint is actually equal to 2 cups, and 2 cups of buttermilk is what the recipe calls for. So if you have a 1 pint container of buttermilk, you can actually just use this entire container and use that to pour into your mixture gradually. So I am going to continue to use my mug, which filled up before I got all the way through the 2 cups. And I'm going to use my flour. So I've got my spatula handy, so when I need to scrape down the sides, I can. So I'm going to just turn this on low. All right. And this is a step that you probably need help with from a grown-up anytime you go to the mixer and are dumping things in. And I'm just gonna add this really gradually. alternate and do some of the buttermilk. Use my spatula to make sure I'm getting all that buttermilk in there as I spill more. Let's keep a running list of how many times Miss Emily can spill while she's making blueberry muffins. But it's okay, because I'm going to clean up after myself. Okay. Back to the flour. I've got my buttermilk and my flour and my baking soda and lemon zest all incorporated into my mixture. So now I'm going to just make sure I've scraped down all the sides, and I'm going to go on to the next step, which says to dredge the berries in 2 tablespoons of flour and gently fold into the batter. And do not overmix, otherwise the berries will bleed. So if I beat them too hard with my mixer or my spatula, all of the purple berry juice will bleed out into my muffins and make them purple, which isn't necessarily a terrible thing, especially if you love the color purple and want your muffins to be kind of purple tinted. But when they bake, it might end up more of like a purpley bluey gray color. But if you want them to look like a classic traditional blueberry muffin, then you are going to want to dredge them in the flour and use your spatula to gently fold them into your mixture. So now I'm done with this blade, my paddle attachment for my mixer. So I'm going to scrape it off and get all of that batter off, at least as much as I can. So I am going to add my blueberries now. So I've got a bag of frozen blueberries that I will be using. It says the recipe says you can use fresh or frozen, and the recipe doesn't actually tell you which kind of berries to use. So if you have a berry mixture or strawberries or blackberries, whatever kind of berry you have on hand that you would love to have in a muffin, that's the kind you should use. So today I'm just going to use blueberries because that's what I had. So I'm going to go back to my 1 cup measuring cup, and it's got some buttermilk in it still, and that's okay because it's all going in the same pot. If you were making a different kind of recipe where there were different steps where this cup would be considered contaminated because it's had other ingredients on it, then you would want to make sure to wash this. But since I'm just pouring the blueberries into the cup and it's not going to be scooping inside my bag, I'm not going to wash it beforehand because it's all going to end up in my same batter. All right, there's 1 cup. All right, and you can already see that the berries are bleeding a little bit, as it's called, and some of that purple berry juice is on the inside of my measuring cup now. Okay, so I've got my berries in a bowl, and now it's time to dredge them with flour. So I've got my tablespoon measuring spoon that I'm going to make sure it's nice and dusted off. And I'm going to dredge my berries in 2 tablespoons of flour. So all that means is that these berries are going to be coated in a small amount of flour, and that's going to just further keep them from not bleeding into the dough and incorporating really nicely into my batter. All right, so I've just got my same spatula, and I'm just going to mix those up really quick. So they're mostly covered in flour. Okay, that looks good to me. All right, so now I'm actually gonna remove this from my stand mixer because I'm all done with this. And I'm going to take my berries and I'm going to gently fold them into my mixture. Okay, so I take my spatula and I just fold that batter around my berries. So I'm not pushing very hard, I'm more doing a folding action. Now my berries are frozen, but they were on the counter for a little while, so some of the juices are kind of naturally, because they were frozen berries, kind of melting off and kind of giving my batter a purpley tint, but that is okay. All right, now I think they're fully mixed in. Batter is ready to go, and I'm going to scoop it into my muffin tray. So I'm gonna clear this stuff off really quick and bring my muffin tray over, and then we will get to scooping our muffins into the tray. All right, so the recipe says to use an ice cream scoop to scoop your batter into your muffin cups. I didn't bring mine with me, and we don't have one here at the school, so I'm gonna use a measuring cup instead. So you can use a measuring cup, you can use spoon, you can use whatever you have on hand to scoop your dough into your muffin cups. And you'll see that I'm using kind of unique ones just because it's what I had, but use whatever muffin cups you had at home. It doesn't matter if yours look like mine or not. So I'm just going to take a nice little scoop here. A timer for 20 minutes. And then at 20 minutes, I will go in and check them to see if they have cooked long enough and if they might need 5 more minutes. All right, and this is an important part. When you go to put your muffins in the oven, have a grown-up help you. All right, so my timer's going off, so I'm gonna open the oven. Well, actually, first I'm gonna turn off my timer. Okay, and now let's check on our muffins. Okay, so I definitely filled those a little bit more full than it suggested. So it looks like they do need those 5 more minutes. So I'm just going to go ahead and add 5 minutes onto the cooking time. And we will check them again in 5 minutes. Okay. Timer's going off again. Let's take another look. All right. Oh, my glasses are fogging up, but they're starting to look really, really good. They still seem a little bit doughy, honestly, and so I'm going to put them in for maybe 3 more minutes and just keep a close eye on them. This is the thing with baking in ovens. Every oven is a little bit different, so you never know exactly how long it's going to take for things to be done. So one thing you can do if your muffins are looking done at this point, you can take a toothpick and just insert it into one of your muffins. And if the toothpick comes out clean and doesn't have any dough on it, then your muffins are done. So if at this point, after 25 minutes, your muffins are done, you can pull them out and set them on a cooling rack and let them cool for a few minutes before you eat them. Okay, checking them again. Now they're starting to really look like they might be done. I don't have any toothpicks, so I'm just gonna use a butter knife and pick one of these muffins and just see. So it comes out mostly clean, but I'm just gonna give it 1 more minute because it's still a little bit doughy in the center there. We'll give it 1 minute. All right, I'm pretty confident that they're ready now. They smell amazing. I'm just gonna check one more, just to be sure that they're not gonna be undercooked. Okay, beautiful. All right, so I'm gonna use 2 hands and some pot holders to take them out of the oven, and then I'm gonna close my oven. Now I'm just gonna let these cool for 1 to 2 minutes in the pan, and then I'm gonna move them to my cooling rack over here, and then they can cool for probably 10 minutes before they're safe to eat, because they're gonna be pretty hot right now. 10 minutes at least, but make sure you're checking them to make sure they're not too hot to eat before you actually dig in. So I have a little bit more batter, so in a couple minutes I will take these muffins out and then fill my next batch. All right, everybody, the muffins are out of the oven. They've been on the cooling rack now, and they are ready to eat. So I hope you enjoyed making blueberry muffins with me today, or whatever kind of berry you used. And I'd love it if you posted a picture of you with your finished product in the comments. And then if you have any questions as you're following along with this video making muffins, be sure to comment those as well, and I will be watching and able to answer those as you go. So hope you enjoy your muffin. I hope you enjoy this video. Have a great day, everybody.